Hello and welcome to GMBN Tech Ask, where you ask us the questions. You use hashtag Ask GMBN Tech down in the comments of any of our videos and we'll get back to you with an answer. However, today is a little bit special because you asked us some questions on Instagram about cockpits and controls. So let me dive straight in with our first question from Karthik Garrick Kapati, who says, I am getting severe wrist ache. I am rocking 740 bars and my shoulder width is 400 mils. I have tried changing the stem positions and angles. I use a 60 mil stem with a -30, which gave me brutal pain. I changed it to a +30 degrees, which is making me feel less nimble and more upright. I tried using the grips with wingtips for wrist support, and they're just not comfortable. So what's the problem here? So you've got wrist ache, and it seems that if you're using a -30 stem, which is putting you down into a drop -30 angle here with your stem, if that's making it worse, and when you flip it to +30, it's better, then I'm guessing that gives you an indication that the wrist ache is coming from a position that's too low on the front. Judging by the fact that you're using a -30 stem, I'm guessing that you are riding an XC bike, and it is very trendy, popular to run drop stems and to slam stems, but I've got to say it doesn't work for everyone. It might be that you're putting too much weight on your wrists and your wrists just aren't coping with it very well. So if you were to stick with a 60 millimeter stem, if that is the reach and the length that you like, can you get hold of like a ±6 degree? Because what that will do is it will drop your handlebars by 25 mil lower than your highest position that you were trying with your ±30 degree, because the difference that you were getting from that ± was about, well, I wrote it down here, is about 25 mil longer in the reach and 54 mil lower in your height. So the middle ground would be a 60 mil stem with a ±6 degree, which will only drop it by about 25 millimeters. If you think that bringing the reach in and getting more of an upright position might also help take the pressure off your wrists, then maybe try something a little shorter, like 50 millimeters. And I would say 50 millimeter stem with a drop of -6 is actually pretty commonplace in XC right now. So if you can borrow something to play around with, or something maybe with a no rise at all, then it's worth trying, and just beat that trend and beat the wrist pain. Next up I've got from Shane, who says, I'm getting pain in the base of my thumb or palm muscle while riding. I'll put the full question up on screen, but that's this bit here. He's 6 foot riding a Scout on a 30 mil rise Bergtech bar with 15 mil spacers under that stem. He's had various bar rolls and grip changes which have failed to improve it. And then Jared Marshall has replied saying that he really wants to know the answer to this because he's getting it on his right hand as well, so pain here. So it is quite common for cyclists to get pain, more so I would say in the XC and road world, because often there's a lot of pressure on the hands with that low front end. So you've moved your bars up already, you've said, which is a really good start. Although I would say 30 mil with 50 mil stem, 30 mil riser bars with 15 mil spacers under the stem is already quite high, but I would say that your stem being 50 millimeters might be maybe too long. So if you brought a shorter stem to the table, kept your riser bars, then you'd bring the reach in and you'd get a more upright body position, which should take some of the pressure off the palms of your hands. Assuming that is what's causing it, but it is quite likely that you get that kind of thumb pad pain from too much pressure or too much damage to the capillaries around your hand. Maybe your wrist angle is too angled up. So again, just trying to get more of an upright, comfortable body position, relieving the pressure on your hands might help. Jared, the fact that you're getting this on long descents just kind of works towards you being then pitched forward on a long descent. You're just getting a lot of pressure on the palms of your hands. Maybe it's only happening on one because maybe that's your stronger hand and you're gripping tighter with that, or maybe it's your weaker hand and it's just suffering from fatigue more. Maybe you might want to take a little bit of pressure out of your front tires if you think that that's just a little jarring, shall we say, for descending. But it's generally, you're going to have to play around with a few things like suspension, tire pressure, and maybe trying to get more of an upright body position again to take the weight off of the palms of your hands, if that's going to solve it. So yeah, a lot of the answers that I'll have in this area is that you're going to have to play with a few things. Because there's not, some people can experience the same pain and it's caused from a different thing. And yeah, you're gonna have to play around a lot of the time. So Guy Catherine says, I always hear other riders say your brake levers should be able to move on the handlebars in case of a crash. I'd prefer to run on my aluminium bars tight enough so that they don't move during heavy braking. Is this right? Yeah, I mean, you've answered your own question really. What you prefer is what you should do. I know a lot of people who do leave their brake levers loose on the bars so that if they crashed, the brake lever would move and it wouldn't break the body or the whole lever off. So it means you can still pop them back and carry on riding. The downside to that is obviously if you go over anything like a big jump and your hands push them or move them, or if you hit a tree by accident during a race run or whatever, you can move them and they might be in the wrong place, and that could be more frustrating than the occasional crash. So in my opinion, yeah, probably avoid it for serious things like downhill, where they can move easily, but it's personal preference at the end of the day. Backpack Max says flat horizontal brake levers versus angled 45-degree levers, or somewhere in between, question mark. I love my flattish setup, but most of my mates ride with their levers rotated much closer to 45 or beyond. Yeah, again, as I said before, don't copy your friends, don't copy the pros, because what they prefer may not work for you. And indeed, Johnny Medj RVA has replied saying this is something Johan Borelli does. I tried running flat levers and it just feels weird. So Johan Borelli, he rides incredibly steep technical stuff, and he will angle his brakes up because he basically, if you angle your brakes up and your wrists go up, then you effectively get a sort of strength position on the handlebars, and you're supposed, Johan reckons, you can grip less, and so you get less arm pump and less fatigue. So that's why he does it. But if you're not riding aggressive steep terrain, maybe you're riding XC, then having your levers up there probably isn't going to be particularly fun or useful or great in terms of nippy control. So there is a balance to be had depending on your riding style, the terrain you're riding, how steep it is, and just generally whether you like it. So do muck around with it, do experiment, why not? But don't assume that just because Johan Borelli's liking it that you will too. So Marcos Santa Maria 00 says, what's the best way to know the optimal bar width for you? Yeah, this is another one of those debatable ones, and which is quite annoying. I would love to give you a magic formula, but there just isn't. Part of it will be sizing, so my shoulder width is going to be a lot narrower, and my arm span is going to be a lot narrower than, say, Doddie's, who is 6'2" and I'm 5'1". So sizing plays a part in it. Also riding style, people riding aggressive downhill, super enduro, maybe a lot of park stuff, they might want the leverage of a longer bar. Whereas if you were riding XC, a really wide bar is going to feel quite sloppy and not very agile. So there is a scale in which narrow to wide might benefit certain genres. And then also there is just personal preference to go along with that. I did a video recently on why not to set your bike up like an EWS Pro. And in there you will see that handlebars were often 760 mils, regardless of their size, their shoulder stature. It was just a number that people kept coming back to because they were weaving through tight trees and it worked for them. So Jamie Elliott said, I always get numb hands starting from the outside and spreading across. I've tried a few different grips, but nothing seems to help. And then Mattis Coop says, me too, I have even ergonomic ergon grips. Can it be the handlebars? I mean, there's not much for me to go off on YouTube there. You haven't told me about any of your setup, whether your stem's long, short, whether it's high, low on the steerer, or your bars are wide or anything like that. I think these are all things you should try and play with, just if you can borrow stuff. And I recommend that to anyone who's watching that has hand issues or arm or elbow or shoulder issues. It's probably your cockpit and you need to play with it. But I will tell you, Jamie and Mattis, my experience in terms of outside hand pain. I've had this on 2 occasions. One was when I was doing a stage race across the Pyrenees, and I had padded gloves, which was very trendy back in the day for cross country, and the pressure of those pads was giving me outside pain. When I took them off and used non-padded gloves, the pain wasn't there. So Mattis, you've said you use ergon grips. Have you tried straight grips instead? Is there too much pressure on the outside and that's what's causing you pain? Usually pain from the hands is from crushing capillaries, so I'm guessing there is too much pressure somewhere, potentially too much back or up sweep in your handlebars, putting pressure on the outside as well. And the second thing, the second experience that I've had with this is on an enduro bike, which is, you know, big squishy bike of 160mm front and rear. And I got that pain and actually arm fatigue as well when I was using some Renthal carbon bars, and it stopped when I switched out. And Renthal are quite stiff carbon bars, I would say, which are great. There's nothing wrong with that. But for me, it was quite fatiguing and painful. So are you guys running carbon that's particularly stiff rather than aluminium, or a carbon bar that is designed to be a bit more flexible and a bit more damping? So try something like that if you can borrow from a friend rather than spending lots of money on loads of different cockpits. Corky Schwarky says, where should your index finger be on a brake? Wherever you want it, basically. Most brake levers like this will have some indents for grip, and that's a good indicator of where most people will put their index finger. I personally run mine right on the edge because I like this kind of little nook here. And also, if you think about it, from not on to fully on is a bigger movement at the end than it is here at the inside. So you get more sort of leverage and a bit more control with that sort of bigger movement, in my opinion. So I prefer the end. However, if you're a 2-finger breaker, then, you know, that could change completely. And your index finger somewhere in the middle. Equally, I know some crazy riders that break with their middle finger, which is really weird, but it happens. So quick answer to your question is there is no right answer. Do what works for you. Oh, I will say one thing though, probably the most important thing is that that lever is wherever your finger is going to be. Your finger should just be nicely resting over that lever, and you just sort of get a nice little bit of movement. You're not reaching for your lever. It's probably key. Bob Go says, I always got blisters at the areas between my palms and middle ring finger and last finger on both hands. Yeah, absolutely same. You can have a close-up of these. Sadly, I think I've just got quite squishy hands, and they always get squished up, and I always get calluses is what they're called, this sort of rough bit of skin. I have tried all sorts of grips, all sorts of tacky and soft grips, which kind of help. I will say something like an Ergon GXR, which is like a silicone grip, is nice on the hands. And also I've used some really super soft, super tacky Renthal grips in the past, which are nice, but it does not stop it. You're either prone to it or you're not. My advice and what I do is I've actually got a climber's skin file, and I will file them down and use a climbing kind of balm, which sort of heals and softens the palms of your hands. And if you do that regularly, they do go down and they do sort of disappear. So look into climbing skin care, and that might sort you out. But that's the last of our questions this week, and don't forget to use hashtag Ask GMBN Tech down in the comments of this video if you like, if you have any questions whatsoever. Also, do check out last Saturday's video where I did a more in-depth look at handlebars and explained everything from back sweep to up sweep to rise and what changes that will make to your ride. Thanks for watching.